Over 40 years ago, this classic looping steel coaster broke many roller coaster records. The most notable record is its signature interlocking loops. In fact, the shot of the two interlocking loops is so iconic, even the general public will probably recognize this view. Today, I will do my best to dissect this legendary attraction and show how it stacks up against other roller coasters. So let's dive into my review of Loch Ness Monster. Presentation. As I've already mentioned, Loch Ness has one of the most iconic views of a roller coaster out there. Everyone has seen the amazing interlocking loops. The ride looks incredible. Loch Ness is one of those roller coasters that has somehow turned itself into a work of art. The interlocking loops are just great. The ride looks in tip-top condition. The station and queue area is lightly themed, just enough to blend right in with the Scottish-themed area of the park. I really like the ride entrance. It just looks so cool with the diving equipment staged right there. During the ride, the only thing that is themed is the tunnel, which the park does a good job with. It's a dark, winding tunnel. Busch Gardens updated this tunnel section this year by including strobe lights and a roaring sound, which is supposed to be the Loch Ness Monster. You never actually see the monster, which is fine because I always looked as like the roller coaster train is the actual monster. Overall, the presentation for this coaster is top-notch. I'm giving it a score of 10. Intensity. Being a ride that's over 40 years old, Loch Ness still manages to keep the intensity up. The interlocking loops provide a good dose of G-forces. The long helix inside the tunnel has some decent laterals as well. Because Loch Ness is a classic aerodynamics roller coaster, every transition is very sudden, which makes for a rough, intense experience. I find myself bracing before every transition. The new coaster trains are a godsend for myself because the older trains had a really small headrest, so when you'd hit those loops, my head would literally be tilted all the way back. It wasn't a pleasant experience. The new trains now have proper headrests, which are a double-edged sword. I'll explain that later, but anyways, a score of 7 sounds about right for intensity. Fun factor. The nostalgia is strong with this one. Fans of Busch Gardens seem to have a special spot in their hearts for this coaster. With that said, I think a lot of people will have a skewed opinion of this ride. Loch Ness is an okay ride. I wouldn't call it a boring, but it's not really a fun ride either. That's mostly due to just because how rough it is. There's still stuff here to enjoy, so I'm fine with giving Loch Ness a score of 5 in the fun factor category. Originality. When Loch Ness Monster opened in 1978, there was no other looping coaster quite like it. The interlocking loops are a thing of brilliance. The layout is somewhat basic, but executed quite well, delivering a nice long ride. I'm awarding Loch Ness a score of 10 for originality. Ride smoothness. So this is where I really have a problem with Loch Ness Monster. The ride is a guaranteed headache for me. In fact, the first time I rode this coaster, it hurt my neck, caused me pain and discomfort for days. Some of that is simply because I was too tall for the older trains. As I mentioned already, the park got new trains in 2018, which fixed the whole headrest thing, but creating a whole new problem. Your head now bounces off the headrest like a ping pong ball, thus the headache ensues. The transitions are very snappy, which all cause some unpleasant bumps. The new trains seem to handle these snappy transitions better than the older trains, which is good news. Loch Ness isn't completely all bad with the roughness, though. From the first drop till you reach that first loop, it's actually not too bad. Things start to get a little bumpy once you reach that tunnel, the second lift hill area. The loops are typical aero loops, which means they are very small, compact inversions, throwing your head into the headrest. Overall, I'm giving it a score of 5 for ride smoothness. The final score comes to 7.4, which is a respectable score. I think the ride representation and originality outshine the negativities of this coaster. So someone asked me recently if I could also include my own personal score to go along with my more quote-unquote scientific scoring system. So moving forward, all reviews will now include a final score, which is my personal rating of the ride. So, my personal score for Loch Ness Monster is 5. I really don't like this ride. As I already said, it's a headache machine for me. Maybe others will think different, but it's a one and done ride. Personally, I would rather just watch this roller coaster than actually ride it, simply because it's just so cool to watch. Loch Ness is more of a landmark to me than an attraction. Honestly, I'd love if they could just give it like the Phantom's Revenge treatment by completely retracking it to give it a smoother, more enjoyable experience. Oh, of course, and obviously you'd leave in the loops. They're so iconic. Maybe you could reinforce the steel so it can have like dueling loops. Now that would be cool. Thank you for watching today's review. What do you think of Loch Ness Monster? Did I give it a good rating? Let me know in the comments. Please subscribe and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.